Welcome back to Reviews with Elaine, because I have opinions. Today's opinions will be about Victory of Eagles by Naomi Novik. So, the problem with reading books I like, especially ones that are later in a series that I've already talked a lot about, is I feel like I don't have a lot to say about it, other than I like this. And I knew that was going to be a problem with this book before I picked it up, but reading underwhelming books leaves me slightly morose. And that's actually one of the reasons I tend to muscle through books, even if I'm not enjoying them. Because even if I'm not enjoying it, I feel a sense of accomplishment when I'm done with it. And honestly, usually if I can convince myself to muscle through, I'll find something about it I like. But I did not do that with the last book I read. I was just not getting anything I enjoyed out of it. By the way, that book was Industrial Magic. I'll probably put the link somewhere in the video. So after that, I just wanted to read something that I would have fun with, and that I knew I would enjoy, even if it would make writing the review slightly harder. But before I give my verdict on this book, Victory of Eagles is the 5th book in the Temeraire series. So yeah, if you have not read the first 4 books in this series and want to avoid spoilers, you might want to stop here. Starting with a huge spoiler from the end of the 4th book, the last book, Empire of Ivory, ends with Captain Will Lawrence and Temeraire committing treason. And this book starts with them in separate prisons, as it were. Temeraire's in a breeding ground in Wales, and Lawrence is in the brig of a ship on the blockade. Neither are being exceptionally securely held. Like, Lawrence has like 12, 13, 14 options to escape in the first couple of chapters, and Temeraire could escape at any time, being a rather large dragon. He basically can't be contained. They are both basically being held hostage for the other, and this is something that's set up very early on in the series as something that can and often does happen, that if a dragon needs to be contained, the best way to do it is contain the captain. And Temeraire therefore knows that as long as he stays put and behaves, Lawrence will be kept alive, even if he's not super comfortable. And Lawrence is honestly more being held by his sense of honor and his own belief that he did commit treason and therefore must suffer the punishment given to him. But also, he is knowledgeable that if he knows that if he dies, Temeraire is likely to, turn against the nation and either kill hundreds or himself be killed. So they're both basically being used to hold the other hostage. But when Napoleon launches an attack that sinks the ship that Lawrence is on and lands thousands of French soldiers on English soil, both dragon and man will have to find themselves fighting for England once more, while trying desperately to get back to each other and stay together, preferably while both still alive. So yeah, I like this series. There's not much short of killing the main protagonist that could put me off reading the other 4 books in this series. And even that, if it's done the right way in the right place, I might still enjoy the books. I still love the characters of Lawrence and Temeraire. I still love the friendship between them. I love the contrasts of their personalities. I still love the super weird, intelligent, yet childlike way that Temeraire thinks. I still love the prose and its ability to sound like the right level of archaic so that it feels accurate to the time period without being hard to read. I still love the fact that I'm learning about history that I didn't know about, though this one, we've left history behind. It's doing its own damn thing at this point. Yeah, there's still bits of history in there, but as far as I know, and I've actually looked into it, Napoleon never landed in London. But I also still love the complex interplay of 19th century morality with modern sensibilities. And as usual, that's something I'm going to talk about a lot in this review. A major theme of this book could have honestly made it rather unrelatable. Lawrence spends huge portions of this book trying to deal with the cognitive dissonance of him being this intense super patriot who has built most of his identity around being a British military guy. And suddenly he has committed treason. And he knows it's for a good reason, but he still defied orders and did something that he knows in his heart the English would not approve of. And in the beginning, there's this feeling of, oh my god, Lawrence, get over it. You did the right thing. He spends a huge amount of time wallowing in guilt that feels very foreign to me as someone who does not put king and country at the height of my hierarchy of who I owe loyalty to. Like, Lawrence prevented his country from committing a war crime. Like, weaponizing a disease that would have killed untold numbers of soldiers and non-combatants. Like, yeah, that's something that to a modern audience, good on you for stopping that. That was a correct decision. Especially when we are shown that a buttload of the new and minor characters do hate him for his action, but all of our friend characters, all the people we've grown to like, they either show quiet or significantly less quiet approval of his actions. Everyone is more annoyed at him for coming back to England to suffer his fate as a traitor than for his act of taking the cure to France in the first place. So, at least I was like, oh my god, Lawrence. And I was just waiting to see the book gradually teach him to come to accept his heroic act as actually heroic, and get to the point that he's willing to fight back and stand up for himself and say, no, I did the right thing, I'm not going to let you hang me because it's stupid. But Novik surprised me. That is not the journey that Lawrence took in this book. Instead of a simple message about loyalty to the greater good being more important than loyalty to king and country, she made it all very complicated. Because this book is also the one in the series where suddenly war gets very serious. And I may have mentioned in my previous reviews, in fact I'm 90% sure I did, that this book does or these books do something very 1800s, where war is shown as this very noble enterprise, with combatants able to sit around having tea together when they're not actively fighting, because everyone follows the rules of engagement. And so afterwards you can sit down, even if your friends and family have just died, you can sit down with your enemies and have tea and be all polite, because that's the way we do things. There's decorum and honor and all that jazz. Which, of course, is not the way we tend to see war nowadays, and like there are subtle hints throughout all the books that not everyone gets that version of war. But in this book, nope, no one gets that version of war. Shit gets real quick. Napoleon is suddenly on English soil. People are dying horrifically, the rules of engagement are thrown out the window, and it looks like Lawrence's actions in book 4 might have actually doomed England. Like, Lawrence is forced to face the fact that even though what he did was to save lives, because he saved the enemy, he may have continued a war and made even worse a war that would condemn his own friends and family and kill untold numbers and destroy the country he has loved for his entire life. He is asked to act against his own morals to make up for it, and we get to watch him teeter back and forth with questions he thought he had answered in the last book. Does the ends justify the means? And suddenly, it's only brought up in one quick exchange, there's also the question of, was his loyalty to his commanding officers from the beginning more about taking responsibility off his own shoulders than actual belief that his superiors were right? And like, there are subtle hints of that in the other books as well, but this one, it's directly asked at one point. It's not answered, but it's asked. And this is just all a lot more complex of an examination of loyalty, morals, and the balance between than I honestly expected, which these books consistently surprise me with how deep they are, so I don't know why I don't expect it. I also love the fact that Timurair never quite figures out what's going on with Lawrence throughout the entire book. Lawrence is literally having an emotional breakdown half the time, and Timurair is just sitting there like, does he want treasure? I don't know! But he still tries his best to help, which just makes their relationship so sweet. And yes, it says something about, like, friends often not understanding what you're going through, but still being willing to try and be there. It's all really fucking sweet. I mean, I don't know, y'all. I know I should say more about this book. There's some interesting stuff in Timurair's promotion and how necessity forces advancement of culture, and how the questions of morality, the morality of holding out for civil rights when refusing to act could in fact condemn people's lives, and how that question mirrors Lawrence's moral quandaries. it's all really complex. There's also a lovely gradual development with the questions of dragon civil rights, and there's this beautifully, amazingly accurate and annoying moment when one character pushes back and it all feels really real and really like drawing a mirror to society. There's some really cool subtle bits showing the dragons as being less emotionally struck by the deaths of humans than the deaths of dragons, which shows a lovely mirror to the way all people tend to have less empathy for those who are less like us. But I don't really have much to say about any of this other than, wow, that was well done. Good job, Naomi Novik. The only thing that really bothered me with this entire book is I'm not entirely sure how much I buy that Will Lawrence, the former naval captain, the former naval hero, and the traitor who helped the French, is being held on a naval ship in the middle of a blockade against the French. Like, to me, that seems like you're setting him up to escape there. And if not escape, at least you're putting a possible traitor in a position that he could do a lot of damage to the one thing keeping the French off of English soil. So all that made me really go, would they have done that? Like, really? Like, maybe it was common practice just to store traitors in the brigs on ships instead of in, you know, a secure prison on land. But it felt more like Novik just needed a way to fake out Lawrence's possible death and to get a POV character right into the center of the chaos of the original invasion in this book. And so she just put him there just to have him conveniently there. But other than that, I don't really have any problems with this book. I like the book. We'll read the next. Hope you enjoy it too.